How did a kid trapped in the cycle of poverty become a multiple sport world champion?
There's a guy that's in MMA now. There's the last guy to knock him out. His name's Alex Pereira, and he's truly one of the most terrifying human beings.
Bad motherfucker.
Make way for the king.
Alex Pereira had extremely humble beginnings. From the slums of Brazil, his harsh environment caused him to grow up fast. He began working at the age of 12 years old, and part of the work culture was drinking. He began drinking every day and realized after a few years that he could not quit.
Eu sempre gostei de beber, desde moleque, desde novinho.
Mas você acha que chegou a ser um problema, assim,
sim, porque isso me atrapalhava muito, né? Me atrapalhava muito, então eu vi que eu tinha que parar. Tentei várias vezes. Tipo assim, comecei de moleque e tal, e só foi piorando, né? Foi aumentando. Então, quando eu tinha... Era 21 para 22, né? 21 para 22, eu comecei a treinar e eu falei assim, eu quero treinar para parar de beber.
So Alex Pereira escaped the clutches of alcoholism through dedicating his life to martial arts, and he became a dominant kickboxing world champion in the process. It's possible to infer that if Pereira got into kickboxing without trying to escape drinking, he would not have been so committed to it. Escaping alcohol was the most difficult challenge of Pereira's life, but it led him to becoming an 8-time kickboxing world champion and UFC world champion. This is referred to as the obstacle being the path, the difficulty or tragedy in our life being what actually reroutes us toward what we were destined for, and this is actually how Stoicism was created. Around 310 BC, a wealthy merchant named Zeno had his life savings invested in purple dye, and he was traveling on a ship when he was suddenly a victim of a shipwreck. The ship carrying his entire life savings of inventory sank into the ocean. He barely survived and ended up in Athens. In Athens, with no money or direction, he visited a bookstore and began reading Socrates' philosophy. He was so enthralled by it, he asked the bookstore owner where he could find an author like Socrates. The owner noted that a famous philosopher happened to be walking by at that very moment. Zeno would become a student of that philosopher for over 20 years, and Zeno would go on to found the school of Stoicism, which has survived until this day. Zeno theorized that nature has a divine order, which he called logos, and all things that happen are for the good of all, including ourselves. If he had never been shipwrecked, he would have never founded Stoicism, which has helped millions. And if Pereira had never struggled with alcoholism, he potentially never would have become the world champion that inspires millions. The main idea of the obstacle is the path is there is no such thing as a setback or problem. Everything that happens to us is rerouting us to a new opportunity for the greater good. The second Stoic concept seen in Pereira is the killing of the ego. The Stoics believed that hubris was a guaranteed path to a man's downfall. As Epictetus said, "Throw out your conceited opinions, for it is impossible for a person to begin to learn what he thinks he already knows." Alex Pereira was an 8-time kickboxing world champion in 2 different weight classes. He is considered one of the best kickboxers to ever live. However, despite this, he was able to kill his ego and come into MMA with a willingness to learn. The natural instinct for a multiple-time world champion kickboxer is to assume they're a master of striking already. But Pereira had the humility to understand he had a lot to learn, not just with grappling, but also translating his kickboxing striking into MMA striking.
E ainda, além disso, o meu strike vai subindo ainda, porque é um strike para MMA.
Para MMA, exatamente.
Então você vai, cara, é todo dia uma evolução.
Another example of Pereira killing his ego is in the build-up to the Israel Adesanya fight. After 2 previous wins, with one by knockout, most fighters would have been extremely cocky facing the opponent for a 3rd time, but not Pereira.
Como fosse a primeira luta.
You know what? We're talking about MMA. We all know what happened in the last 2 fights. I forgot about him. I hope you forgot as well. I'm gonna fight you like it was the first time I was fighting you in my life.
He does not underestimate Izzy, and this humility was undoubtedly a huge part of his victory. Another huge part of his victory was his bulletproof state of mind, which the Stoics believed was a byproduct of living virtuously. The Stoics believed the meaning of life was to live virtuously. They believed there were 4 main virtues: courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. And these virtues are seen in Alex Pereira. Justice, giving back to the indigenous people.
Onde nessa pandemia os índios tiveram muitas dificuldades, até mesmo para se alimentar. E eu saí de São Paulo, fui até Porto Seguro, fazer uma doação de alimentos para eles. Quero fazer o meu nome, né? Fazer meu nome crescer, para mim estar usando futuramente aí para tentar ajudar.
Courage, changing from kickboxing to MMA. Temperance or self-discipline, in mastering himself and quitting a vicious battle with alcoholism. And finally, wisdom, in starting over and approaching MMA with a beginner's mind despite being a kickboxing world champion. The Stoics believe living virtuously led to inner peace and a mind which is undisturbed by the outside world, which they called ataraxia. Ataraxia literally translates to imperturbability, and I could not think of a better way to describe his state of mind. As Zeno said, man conquers the world by conquering himself. And we conquer ourselves by, first, embracing unexpected challenges as a rerouting toward what we were destined for. Second, killing our ego and having the humility to approach everything with a beginner's mind. And third, acting virtuously. I would love if you left a comment with the infinity emoji so I know how many people actually watch until the end of the video. If you're interested in learning more about Stoicism, check out this video about it here on the right, and there will soon be a third one here on the left.